Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willis. Today we have a very special guest. Well, we know we do 25% or so that are conservative. Well, everybody knows Bill Kristol. Bill Kristol is a conservative stalwart. He is the director of Defending Democracy, a fellow at Harvard's Institute of Politics Kennedy School, and the editor at large at The Bulwark. We all recognize Mr. Kristol as the ardent defender of the conservative positions on every TV, radio network, and at conferences throughout the nation. In fact, I met him at the Bridge Alliance. It is for this reason that his turn against his former party is of utmost importance and something that we better get beyond. Mr. Kristol, Bill Kristol, welcome to Politics Done Right. How are you doing today?
Thanks. It's great to be with you and good to be on your show. I don't know that my turn is of utmost importance, but I'm happy to talk about it for a few minutes anyway.
Well, look, let me tell you, actually, I think having somebody like you, I don't know, have you left the party or not?
Well, in Virginia, we don't have party registration, so that's how I ducked that question. I haven't voted for a Republican really since Trump became president, because even down ballot, though there are some individually decent Republicans, if you're running for the House in 2018 or 2020, you're running as a Trump supporter, basically, or as a supporter of Kevin McCarthy, who's a Trump supporter. And even at the state level, it sort of trickles down. The Trumpization of the Republican Party here in Virginia has been pretty striking. If you followed the primary last week, the convention, and so forth, the race for the Republican nomination for governor here. So yes, I'm not a loyal Republican anymore. I'm not sure I'm really a loyal Democrat yet, so I'm just sort of in between, like a lot of Americans, I guess.
But you're still a conservative to the core, correct?
Mostly. I mean, I was probably always a little too heterodox to be a conservative to the core. I always respected American liberalism. I worked for liberals, Cold War liberals, not moderate liberals, you might say, in the 70s, Scoop Jackson, Pat Moynihan, and always tried to cross party lines when I thought it was appropriate. Supported Bill Clinton on his intervention in Bosnia and Kosovo, for example. So, I don't think I was ever maybe quite as dogmatic or staunch a conservative as some other people. But no, I certainly, and I remain conservative on many issues: American leadership in the world, free markets, lots of issues where I don't agree with my progressive friends. But I do believe that liberal democracy is the most important thing, and on that, unfortunately, the Republican Party, one of our two major parties, is no longer a reliable supporter of really core aspects of our free government, of our liberal democracy.
Well, look, Bill, I remember watching you on TV so often, pulling out the hairs that I don't have. And then I remember going to the Bridge Alliance. I'm allied with the Bridge Alliance as well. And because I really believe in that we all have to get together. All the parties need to get together for a common good. That's what I preach on my show as well. And but watching you on TV right now, it's always, oh God, the man is right. The man is right. Now, I am not sure exactly if you have made a change, or is it that we've moved so far to the right that it seems like you've made a change. Deep inside of your heart, what do you think it is?
It's a good way of putting the question. So I'd say some of both. I think more the movement to the right or against democracy. I would say you can be a very staunch conservative against all kinds of government programs. You can be for a very aggressive U.S. role in the world. You can be for free markets, as I said before, and in all kinds of ways, and reducing government size. But you can still be very strongly for the core institutions of liberal democracy. So I don't think I've moved a bit. I think you'd have to, when the Republican Party, the Conservative Party, produces Donald Trump and then defends Donald Trump and renominates Donald Trump, I think you'd be foolish not to say, what was there something wrong, something more problematic about the conservatism I embraced, about the Republican Party I supported? And I think the answer is yes. There were some things I didn't see or didn't want to see or didn't see clearly enough. But I also think the more important thing, frankly, is the party has changed so much. And American conservatism, which once rejected anti-democratic extremes mostly, but I think pretty consistently. I spent a lot of time fighting Pat Buchanan in the 90s and little time fighting Ron Paul in the 2000s and fighting Bill Buckley fought extremism on the right and so forth. That's totally collapsed. And so the change in the party, I mean, who cares about me? The change in the party and in the nature of conservatism to some degree in America. That's in the Republican Party. That's really the important thing and the dangerous thing.
Now, for those who've said that Donald Trump has really brought out who the Republican Party has always been, and with your introspection on saying maybe there were things that you didn't see or didn't want to see, how would you respond to that?
I think Trump brought out some things that were always there, some things that one knew were there. Look, it's a huge country and there are 60 million, 70 million people voting for Republican candidates. You can't monitor every one of them, obviously. So there were always sort of unpleasant aspects to the party, and sometimes they flared up. And normally, I think they were either suppressed or at least shoved aside. As I say, we probably thought we had suppressed them more than we had. We were probably turned a blind eye to certain aspects or didn't want to see certain things, I think, on some issues. So no, Charlie Sykes, my friend and colleague, says that likes to say that it's right to say that there was a recessive gene in the Republican Party that was probably nativist, somewhat racially bigoted, mean-spirited, kind of conservative, defending people who made it and not doing as much as it should to help people who could use a hand from government and so forth. But it was a recessive gene mostly. I mean, it was kept in under, we suppressed it, so to speak. But recessive genes don't go away, and in this case, it's really flared up with Trump, no question. I mean, I supported Jack Kemp, who was the kind of Republican I think who
I
did
like Jack Kemp.
much harder to think about a positive role for government, a market-friendly positive role. So anyway, I think there've always been different strains. Look, these are huge. America has two political parties. They're huge. They have many different factions and elements, and I don't even know what to call them, strains within them. But I do think, yes, the party was not as healthy as I thought, but it was nowhere near as unhealthy as it's now become.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Now, I love on your website, and folks, the website is defendingdemocracytogether.org, defendingdemocracytogether.org. You wrote this: "We believe in an American exceptionalism," reads the opening line of the 2016 Republican Party platform. "We believe the United States of America is unlike any other nation on earth. Yet today, the Republican Party finds itself entertaining some of the same unsettling nativist and authoritarian impulses that characterized Europe throughout the 20th century. These ideals are antithetical to what it means to be a Republican and what it means to be America." Why did I read that? Right now, there is a mission to create I don't know if it's an alternative Republican Party. I don't know if it's just an alternative party. First of all, are you a part of that movement?
I'm friendly to those guys, to the people who signed that statement. I didn't sign it myself. It goes a little far for me in the third party direction, whereas I think I'd be worried that just to set up a third party would divert voters' attention from the fact that probably in 2022 and 24, we have a binary choice, really, and the choice is the Biden administration and a Democratic Congress, which that has some strengths and it has some weaknesses as well. But the choice is that or the current Republican Party. So I don't want people to sort of, but look, I think it's very important to challenge the Republican Party from within. I support what Liz Cheney's tried to do. We have the Republican Accountability Project at Defending Democracy Together, which tries to support Republicans who voted for impeachment, for conviction, who are challenging the conspiracy theorists, challenging the people who have embraced the big lie. So the more sane Republicans, the better. I'm sort of pessimistic, though, honestly, about saving the Republican Party. I'm sort of pessimistic right in the short term about third party options, which makes me kind of a Biden Republican, I guess.
Wow. Coming out of your mouth, that is huge.
I don't know if it's huge, but it's it's just, I'm trying to be realistic about what matters, and I wouldn't design some of the spending programs the way Biden has. I wouldn't do a lot of other things he and the Democratic Congress are trying to do. Some of them I think are going to be modified in directions that will make me more comfortable with them. But again, those things, spending 23% versus 21% of GDP on federal programs, tax rates of 40% instead of 36%, they pale by comparison with the threat the Republican Party, as it's constituted now, in its following of Donald Trump, in its enabling of Trump, and in its embrace of the big lie, in its refusal to repudiate what happened truly on January 6th and what happened before that to make possible January 6th. I mean, that's not a party. That's a party that needs to be kept out of power, I think.
Now, since now that you brought that up, I think it's important. Your friends, Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell, these were people that I think some had a lot of respect for. I think in the past you've respected them. What are your thoughts about the machinations that they are going through, as opposed to being leaders of their pew, instead being followers of the crazies?
Yeah, I think, and I think they both have failed to rise to the occasion, to say the least. Mitch McConnell, I would say, has at least occasionally said the right thing and has not tried to echo Trump as much as he might have, though he enabled Trump for 4 years, no question, as Senate leader, Senate Majority Leader. McCarthy, I think, is much worse in the sense that we've now purged Liz Cheney, and he's got Elise Stefanik, and he's endorsed her for #3 in the House, and she's just fully on board. She's all in on the craziest of the conspiracy theories in Arizona and elsewhere. She voted to overturn the at least one slate of electors on January 6th. McConnell certainly didn't do that. So, McConnell and McCarthy did. I think of it this way: McCarthy, Scalise, and Stefanik will be the leadership of the House, I suppose, if Stefanik wins tomorrow. And they all voted to overturn the electors on January 6th. Really something that's so beyond the pale. Whatever you think of the Senate Republicans, I think only 8 or 9 of them, I can't remember, voted to
Right.
do that. McConnell certainly didn't and spoke against it. So it's a little difference between McConnell and McCarthy, but basically neither of them has stood up to Trump. But basically, it's unbelievable how few elected officials, especially at the federal level, have stood up. Mitt Romney has been a consistent voice. He hasn't really, I've got to say, he could have done a little more. I think he said the right things, and I respect him highly for that. And he's taken a huge amount of grief. He hasn't tried to mobilize exactly people against Trump. Adam Kinzinger in the House has. There have been other instances of individuals.
Well, there are
People,
10 of them. Yeah.
10 of them voted for impeachment. I give them a lot of credit. The reason why Liz Cheney is important is that she has said she wants to not just say the right thing now, she wants to lead an effort to save the party from Trump. None of the others has been on board for doing that. A couple of people, Joe Walsh and Bill Weld, tried to run for president against Trump. I salute them for the effort, but it wasn't, it did turn out there was just not enough support. They probably weren't the perfect leaders of that, though they tried, and I give them credit too. But I think the reason Cheney's interesting is a true conservative who supported Trump much longer than I thought wise, but she wanted to go bend over backwards to see if the party could just kind of, deal with Trump for 4 years, not pay too high a price, and then he would be defeated, he would leave, and they could get things back to normal. He was defeated. He didn't leave easily. He whipped up a huge conspiracy theory and an attack on America, really. And I think this really shocked Liz Cheney. Not just that he did that, but the number of people who were willing to go along. And that's why I think she voted for impeachment. I mean, she was appalled by what she saw on January 6th, but that's why she's been so forceful for the last 3 or 4 months. She understands in a way that the others don't, that this is really a disaster, not just for the party, as she said, but for the country.
For the
And
country.
so to her credit, she now wants to lead an effort to fight it within the party. We'll see how much support she can rally, but she's a formidable figure. And so I think there's some hope there. But you may also find there isn't that much support for her, at least in the short term, within the party. Still, it's still an important thing to do. And she may decide in 2 years to, that the party isn't the place to stay. She puts country first over party. John McCain put country first. It's regrettable how few others do.
I wonder though, I talk to a lot of people. I live in a very red area here in Texas, and it's amazing to me that I don't see in my area the sort of craziness that I see, and I wonder how much of the party is really crazy. And as much as he got 74 million votes in the election, which always concerned me, but Elise Stefanik and Josh Hawley, both from elitist colleges, from Ivy League colleges. Um, they're playing games, right?
Yeah, and look, I think on your point, I think a chunk of the party is a lot of the part. Most of the party's not crazy. Most of the party is more accommodating to Trump than I would like, in the sense that they think, well, he's got these problems, these deficiencies, this conspiracy stuff's a little kooky, but we want the lower taxes and good judges, and we don't like Biden's policies in area ABC. I don't think they see how serious the threat
Right.
is of letting the Trumpist conspiracy theorizing
Right.
kind of run loose. But I agree, there are a lot of decent people who voted for Trump, and I don't think they should have, but they did, and they could be. This is Liz Cheney's point. There are people who could be won back over for conservative policies without the Trumpist conspiracy theorizing. Hawley, Stefanik, they're cynical. Maybe they've talked themselves into it. I can't see into people's hearts and souls, but the degree of just opportunistic cynicism has also been pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, I can't see it. Now, Bill, tell me, I always end my question in this way to say, please tell me something that you think I should have asked you that I
Yeah.
didn't.
I mean, this is. I think this is. I can't think of anything, or I mean, I can think of a million things. But of course, I want to. This has been a good interview. I've enjoyed it. I would say this. It's interesting. We barely discussed Joe Biden. I think I said I was a Biden Republican, but I do think a lot hinges. I think we all get into, especially people talking to me. Of course, they want to talk about Trump and the Republican Party and the conservative movement. Totally reasonable. But a lot hinges on Joe Biden succeeding as president, in my
Right.
opinion. I think we don't quite sometimes appreciate that. If he were to fail, I mean, let's just say fail for reasons beyond his control. I'm not even making a judgment here about. I rather respect his administration and like much of what he's done. But if it all falls apart for some reason or other, I think we're in a world of trouble as a country. We'll have the Trumpism in the Republican Party will get on steroids. Democrats could go left in response. Maybe there would be some heartening then centrist party or something like a party that would be heartening, that would be hopeful. But I really worry about the radicals. The polarization is already bad. The partisanship's bad. One of the two parties is really toying with being pretty fundamentally, I'd say, anti-democratic. We have one party now holding down the fort, an administration that's trying to be mostly responsible, leadership in the House and the Senate who are mostly being, I think, pretty responsible on the Democratic side. But how long does that last under a lot of stress, economic stress, foreign policy stress, other things? So I really hope the country can pull together under President Biden's leadership, and we can be stronger. And then, then I think we could perhaps work some of the Trumpism out of our system. But I think it's very important that Joe Biden succeed, and that's one reason I'm not doing much. I mean, I don't talk to people in the administration that much. They know what I think, but it's why I wish them well, and to the degree that I can help them in small ways by trying to provide some support from a moderate and conservative point of view for some of their policies, try to persuade them to modify some policies to get more support. It's why I do feel it's important to help Joe Biden succeed, really.
Bill Kristol, thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
My pleasure, really.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.